Welcome to another fun edition of For the Love of Creatives. I'm your connections and community guy, host Dwight, and I'm joined by our other connections and community guy host, Maddox. And today we are joined by
Mason,
Mason. You usually have the senior moments.
what's happening to you today, Dwight?
It's contagious.
Oh my God.
Well, Mason, welcome to For the Love of Creatives. Um, I'm so glad that you could join us for this session. One of the things that we like to do is kind of orient our listener to let them know exactly who you are and what you're about. So, could you just share with us for a couple of minutes a little bit about your creative journey and how it is that we're talking to you today?
Thank you. Thank you for the intro too. And I'm happy to be here. This is so much fun. And actually, this is probably my very first podcast to be on. So new beginnings for everybody. Yeah. So my name is Mason, and uh, I think many would probably would call me I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But I definitely come from a background of people development, learning development, teaching and training. Been a dancer since I was 18 and just kind of fell in love with the performing arts. Have always been in that space since I was a wee lad. Um, Danced, taught, choreographed, was an artistic director, and did all the things. And other than that, I'm just a food lover, an active individual, and just a lover of life.
Well, and
Sounds good
it's
to
real easy
me.
for us to minimize our accomplishments, but for you to be able to hold on to any one of those things is it's a lot for most people. And
It is. Yes. Yes.
so I know I'm really intrigued by the work that you've done with dance. I mean, as a form of expression, it's something that a lot of us, well, in Western society, it's kind of one of those things that's reserved for those people. The people that are bold enough to call themselves dancers. But for a lot of people, that's something that they're kind of discouraged from doing because either from overt or the ways that people are kind of bully people into thinking that they shouldn't try. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, where do I start? It's a big story.
How old were you when you started dancing?
So officially, I started dance my first dance class when I was 18 in college, freshman year. Before that, I was just doing little things here and there. My parents were dancers. They were ballroom dancers and taught social dance. And that's how they kind of just taught us a little bit, but it was very minimal things. And then my older siblings, they were also in the dance world too. They started, I mean, they took lessons since they were little kids. I did not, but they did the tap and the hip hop and the clog and maybe some world dances, like internationally cultural dances, and ballet, just pretty much everything when they were a kid. And so that kind of always just stuck with us, but I never really got a lesson. So my lessons was just watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and who watches YouTube videos anymore? But I sure did. I was watching professionals dance. I was watching every dance movie and TV show that I could find and that I was interested in. And I would just watch and observe. And then I would even try to do it and do what they're doing in front of the mirrors. Like, what this is what it looks like they're doing. And so maybe I could do the same. So I was pretty much self-teaching myself for a year since I was a young kid until I got to college when I actually started taking classes. And I just really enjoyed it because it was always a passion. It was always an interest of mine to be in that space. And during my college experience, it was first just a hobby, just something to enjoy and to kind of because we all need at least one or two classes that you can just enjoy and not have to think too much about. It's so much fun because I was studying to be in the medical field, to be a physician or doctor. Of course, that's a different story in itself, just jumping around different places. But dance was always something that I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, I guess my first lesson was when I was 18. And when I went into my first class, everyone thought that I had tons of years of experience. I said, nope, today's my first day. This is day one.
So were you in, was it a kind of a pressure situation where that was people's lives up until then?
Yeah, so going back to your comment about people calling themselves a dancer, it really it's a form of identity for many dancers. We call ourselves a dancer, and dancers usually equate to being able to do the splits or have high kicks or be able to do some really amazing acrobatic work. So then you get somebody who's maybe not able to do those things. They can't really call themselves that because they know what a dancer looks like and they know they are so far from that. So then they just say, I dance. Um, but going more into depth about dancers and calling ourselves a dancer, we dancers tend to go through an identity crisis when they get injured or when they don't get to perform or when they don't get to teach. And so then they're wondering, well, then who am I if I'm not a dancer, whatever that is to them? So they kind of go down this rabbit hole and depression cycle of just a, I don't know who I am if I'm not doing these things, if I have to pivot careers for whatever reason, injury, just the industry itself, the inability to move or to actually do what you consider as a quote unquote dancer. Um, and
That's really interesting, Mason. I've never considered it, but now that you say this, I'm thinking, wow, probably more than a lot of different types of professions, dance has a high risk. If you're a dancer, you're at risk for injury, and in a way that so many others are not. I never considered that. And it makes sense, when suddenly if your whole life is about dance and you're injured and you can't dance. I mean, I was a beauty professional for 40 years.
oh,
And,
really,
if something had happened to one of my arms or hands where I couldn't have worked, I would have experienced the same thing that you're talking about. But, there's less risk in the salon of injuring yourself. I mean, not that I couldn't have had a car wreck or some other accident that took one of my appendages away, but the likelihood of that happening while on the job is much less likely.
yeah. And when dancers do get injured, the doctors and physicians and therapists will just tell you, we'll just stop dancing. But if that is your career, that's not an option for anybody. And so there's just to add more flame to the fuels, then you're just frustrated because there's nobody there to help you. You're just all by yourself. It's like, well, then I'm just going to keep going, but yet you're going to continue injuring yourself because there's nobody that understands what you're going through, what this is, that this is a livelihood, this is your career. Um, yeah, it's woo.
I'm thinking maybe we've had three other dancers, maybe four on the show, and they have all been female. I think you're the
Yeah.
first male dancer we've had. And so I guess what's really coming up for me right now, because I love things like that, and I just know, of course, I came up in a completely different era than you because you said you're what, 32, you said?
33.
33. Well, I'm more than double your age. I just recently turned 69.
Oh, you
So,
look great, by the way.
well, thank you. Thank you. I was definitely in a different era where um, being male and a dancer was kind of a kiss of death. And I'm wondering, when you came up through the ranks, took the first class at your first year of college. How did that play out? Did you get a lot of grief and bullshit from people about all the stuff that goes along with being a male dancer?
Right. Yeah, there's definitely that stereotype. Well, if you're a male, you must be gay or something. Not something you are. So there's a battle for that. Especially if you're doing ballet, especially if you're doing ballroom, because those seem to be the two genres where people think that, oh, they must be gay. I'm not entirely sure why, other than that's just
What's
probably
wrong with people? What's wrong
right.
with people?
Probably because in ballet you wear tights and a dance belt and you just like to float around.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
have you ever seen a ballet dancer that didn't look amazing in those tights and that
know.
dance belt?
They're all pretty well fit and built.
Yes.
So I mean, I think they're just jealous. That's what I think.
I think you're calling it out exactly right because I think there's an element to that where they know that they never could on their best day approach anything like it. And so
Yeah.
the easiest way to make them feel better is to tear down other people's towers and make it so that, well, that thing that I'll never be able to do, well, that's silly. That's just one of those things for those people.
How did you
Yeah.
deal with that, Mason? When that came
Yeah.
about at that tender time in your life, how did you deal with that?
That's a really interesting question because I don't think I've ever had to deal with that stigma and stereotype. I know others did. I know, but I did not. It wasn't until maybe towards the end of my college experience when I was considering going out into the real world that that was going to be something that I would have to battle, if that's even the right word to say. Um, that people are gonna, because we're now in this day and age where people want to know your sexuality. Like it's so on the table and out there now. So having to tell everybody every time, it's like,
Oh
no.
yeah, it's like tampon commercials on TV now. It's just so you like
Yes.
boys, you like girls, you like both. I mean, yes.
Yeah. I know. So my older brother, he went into the dance world. He got a bachelor's in dance. He got a master's in choreography and performance. And I don't think it was a huge deal for him. But I think the only issue that was a problem was the conversations and arguments he and my dad would have about it. More or less about how can you support a family while doing this? This doesn't support enough. But I think there's probably some embedded concerns about what is my dad going to have to continue defending or proclaiming about his son, his older son, of what he is or who is not, or trying to support him, even though he's really concerned. Um, and so I think for me, when it got to that point, it wasn't the end all of end all decision, but it was something that I was considering at the time. Because around, I was also considering switching my major from being in public health to dance. And I was having conversations with my dance professors about this because they're saying, Mason, just switch your major. You're like you already have all of the credits here. You're doing amazing. You know you love it, so just do it. And that came to a point where I told one of my professors, I can't because I'm wanting to support my dad and wanting to make him happy and seeing the conversations and arguments that were happening between my older brother and him. Like, let's not start a World War II. And they understood, they respected it, yet they still treated me as if I was a protege or just a prized possession that they're happy to have. Um, so
So
yeah,
you
it's been,
you gave it up to keep family peace.
I did for a bit. And then it wasn't until after graduating I guess a year after I graduated, where I was trying to figure out what to do next with my life. Well, what was the next step that I really thought, I really want to go and get my master's in dance. So I was doing research, I was looking up programs, I was doing deep dives into what is it about dance that I really do enjoy. It came to I really enjoy the science part of it and also the artistic and trying to bridge both gaps. So I thought I could be a physical therapist for dancers as well as teach and choreograph and create work. Because I really wanted to create to bridge both together because I really do enjoy science. I loved kinesiology. I loved anatomy. I was taking dance classes that incorporated body patternings and somatics. And I was like, oh, this just makes sense to me. So wanting to put that into dance, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Well, and at that pivotal time, I mean, when you were going to go out into the world, um, what was it like for you leaving the support of the community that you had and those professors who believed in you and
Um,
balancing what you were dealing with and the backdrop of the battle between your dad and your older brother? What what community did you draw from?
yeah, it was very hard to leave them. Very hard because I was excelling well. There were so many countless opportunities that I wanted to take more advantage of, just didn't have enough time to do it. Um, Leaving friends. So going from having a lot of everything to a lot of opportunities to having nothing was was really hard. I was looking for studios to join just so I can continue my craft dancing, but there was not classes for adults. It was all for little kids. And I thought, well, this is not going to work out. But then they say, well, then you could teach. Like, I don't want to teach. I really don't want to teach this age. If I did teach, I'd want to teach college students because that's what I was doing, because they want to be there. They want to learn. Teaching younger ones is just babysitting for me. Others love it, and I'm grateful that they do it because without them, I wouldn't have anybody to teach. But yeah, it was hard. And trying to keep the peace with my dad, it kind of just turned into where what he doesn't know won't hurt him, so I won't tell him anything about
Oh,
anything. Um, it took him a while to come around because I think he was seeing the relationship again with my older brother and how there were a lot of dents in their relationship. And so I think when he was kind of discovering that I was looking to go into the dance world and that I wasn't just doing it just to dance, but I was doing it as, um, I guess that had a little bit of a white collar value to it, if, for lack of better term, to where I'm not just dancing, I'm doing something on the side with it, like being a physical therapist or a chiropractor or being a physician's assistant or things of that nature that is understanding for him. I think that's when he finally started to turn around and became a little bit more supportive and interested in asking questions, not to be of concern, but to really understand what he could do to help support me.
hmm.
And that was great.
I'm a
Yeah.
little curious. I mean, you did say that your mom and dad were dancers,
Hmm.
and your dad, having been a dancer all of his life, is so unsupportive of you and your brother doing that. I'm missing something here. There's like a what's going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, my parents did dance. It wasn't their profession. My dad's in the construction management. Has always loved that too. That's always been a passion of his. And knowing his history, his family history of he comes from a long history of getting an education and being able to support a family and to the the family structure where the man is to provide the bread, to make money, to feed the family. And that has always been part of just our growing up, our structure as a family. And so when those principles and teachings taught are challenged, it's a concern. Um, so yeah, it's interesting how they met in the dance class. They hated each other at first, but then it took just dancing with each other once. And so, long story short, we're all here now.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic where he loves it. Whenever there's a dance floor, when we were kids, my mom and him would be tearing up the dance floor, and people would move out of the way because they take it up. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's great as a hobby, but knowing the history of what dance was back then, where you either perform or you teach, neither of them really make enough money. The concern is you need to find something else to do has rung strong for him.
This is a theme that is run through so many of our episodes where the person, that we're having the conversation with is talking about how their parents pulled support because they didn't really believe that their creative endeavor was a real job or however you want to word that. And I think there's a lesson here, and we've listened to this over and over, but I think I want to call this out now, for our listeners. If you're a parent out there and you got small children, if you've not heard enough stories on this podcast to see how negative it has an impact on your child to not let them do what their heart is telling them to do, it never works well. It never ends well. Never ends well.
Well, and I can appreciate that where your dad was coming from was that sense of safety.
Yeah,
The grief that he was giving your brother and the grief that he was giving you, it came from a good place because he just wanted the best for his kids.
right.
Yes, it always is from a well-meaning place, but we always talk about the intention versus impact.
Yes.
They have a great intention, but the impact can be really negative, especially during your formative years when everything you love, you're being given the motion, given the message that it's not viable.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't know, man. I've lost count on how many people didn't really discover their passion as some form of creative until they were in the mid part of their life because it took them that long to break away from all of that family pressure, to stand on their own 2 feet and finally do what they had been called to do for as long as they can remember. And I find that just sad.
Well, and Mason, it sounds like the arc of your journey is such that you could find that place where you made peace with it. You could actually have a sense of alignment and have those open discussions with your dad, and he was on board. What was that like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because before, like I said, it was a bit hard to talk things out and to tell like, I really do enjoy this thing or this idea. I really want to run with it now. Example, I started a little side gig as a holiday and event decorator. And I've been doing it for a couple of years. And just last year, actually, he was finding ways and at least helping me trying to build a business of my own, who to talk to, how to start one, because he also tried to start his own consulting firm as an engineer. So he was definitely giving me tips and suggestions, what went well for him, what didn't go well. And so he was giving me feedback and just things to think about as finding clientele. Who do I want to work with? Do I want to work for more luxury people? Do I want to work for corporations or businesses? Um, and how to market myself. So the conversations turned to being more, what's the word I'm looking for?
More
Or
supportive.
collaborative?
Yes, more, yes, more supportive. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and I think not saying that we had a rocky relationship to begin with, but I think our relationship has turned for a better because we were able to have these open and these more supportive conversations.
So
Do you feel like you have gotten to where you do what your heart leads you to do now?
Yeah, yes, 100%.
Okay.
I
So that begs the question. You went from a place where dad was really thwarting your desire to be in the arts in some shape, form, or fashion. And you've come full circle now because you're doing what you love.
mhm.
And so to go from point A to point B, who did you have to become?
That is a really good question. So thinking about who I was back then and who I had to become then in order to make these changes happen, I had to go from being a people pleaser and just being submissive and just doing as I'm told to, and essentially being the middle child, having the middle child syndrome behaviors to being more vocal, being the person that does speak out, even though it might rock the boat occasionally or maybe all the time, and to have more confidence in supporting myself because, and I say that in the term that there came a time where I was talking to one of my life and health coaches where again, we were actually talking about my relationship with my father and how I just did everything that I was told to do. But now I had to switch to being the person that says that I have to defend myself. I have to support myself and being okay with that. Not saying that I would not get any support from them at all, but just that I had to be my number one fan, be my number one support group.
The buck stops here is what my dad used to say.
Yeah,
yeah.
Wow. So you're listing off things like boldness and bravery and courage. You had to step into a greater sense of self.
yeah.
Have you ever looked at it from that standpoint? Have you ever looked at who you had to become to get where you are now?
Yes, all the time. Being as also a life and health coach, this is something that we talk about a lot with our clients and also with ourselves of figuring out the roadmaps that got us to where we are, figuring out what are the ones that no longer are of service to us. And there's even an exercise that I did with my clients that we would role play where I would ask them, so if you could be anybody you wanted, who would it be? If there was somebody that you admire most about them, what was it about them that you really admired? And there were always characteristics. And then I tell them, well, the funny thing is that that is our what you admire and what you want to become in somebody else is already embedded within you. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have been able to recognize that and oh much. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
what? What?
yeah.
That's already in me. And so being able to tap into that has really enlightened a lot of people. So I definitely take that into my own self. It's like, okay, who was I then and who do I need to become now in order to move forward? So yeah, I think about it all the time. All the time.
So if you're looking at next steps, you know where you are right now, you know what you've
Mhm.
achieved up to this moment. If you're looking at next steps, in a nutshell, what is the next? Do you have it? Know what the next step is? The next level that you'd like to go to?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think I have ideas of, I want to be more internally, not externally. Well, I guess it could be more external because there has to be some tangible result to it.
I think one drives the other. I think you kind of have to decide what you want to be in order to figure out who you need to be to get there.
Right? Yeah, you need point B so you can figure out where you are in point A to get there.
They're very connected. They're very intertwined and
Yeah.
connected. But I do think that most of the time the what you want to be needs to be determined to be able to know who you need to be to get there, but not 100% of the time. It's all kind of fluid, I think.
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
wrinkle to think about is it's much easier to do the exercise backward. So if you look at
Mhm.
exactly where we are now, then you can make certain assessments about who you are, or you could take a poll, ask the people around you who they think you are. And what you arrive at is, oh my goodness. So there's aspects of it that if someone sees it, well, to them it's true. Well, what did I do to get to this point? How is it that I got in this shape health wise? How is it that I was able to achieve some level of success? Because it didn't just happen. It was a
Right.
series of actions.
I heard something earlier today that really struck me, and it was, you know, um, when we get when something comes about in our life, you know, some dream comes true or some achievement, it is not because we got lucky or not because we wished it so, but because we moved into a place where the universe could reflect us back to us.
Right. I mean, there's a paradigm that I was taught and learned that the universe, whatever is happening outside, is just a reflection of what's already happening within you. So if the world looks chaotic, it's probably because internally everything is chaotic in your life. If everything is great or a little bumpy here and there, that's just being human. Um,
The
so yeah,
universe doesn't give us what we want, it gives us who we are.
yeah.
You know, if
There's
you're
even
if you're a liar, it's going to give you all kinds of things that it wouldn't give you if you weren't a liar. If you were
right,
a truth teller. They really create very different realities.
right. There's another paradigm or teaching where it's your it's about your beliefs and experiences where your beliefs create your experiences, and your experiences are just confirming those beliefs. So if you want to change your experiences, you have to change your belief system.
Absolutely.
And sadly, we're living in a world where that's accelerated because that's that seems to be what's baked into all of the information providing platforms.
Yeah,
They hold a mirror up, and the engine that drives it is confirmation bias. And
right,
everything that we see in our feed, it's uh, we can love it or hate it, but we're seeing ourselves reflected back.
In some
yeah.
way, yes, because you clicked on something that the algorithm said, oh, he likes that. We'll give him more of that. So be careful what you click on. You said a
Right.
minute ago, when I asked, what are the next steps? What's the next big goal? And you said,
Yeah,
maybe I have some, like some ideas. Do you want to share what those, even if it's not, we're not asking you to sign it in blood or anything, but what's bubbling to the surface as you think about what next steps might be? Let's play this out.
yeah. Thank you. And I was actually going to answer your question to what does the future self look like for me? And the first thing that came up was absorbing less externally in the sense I've always been somebody that loves to listen and to absorb my surroundings and everything around me. But it's gotten to this point where that's all I'm doing, and I'm have absorbed so much, and I'm consuming so much that I have very little output going on, or I'm just getting overwhelmed. I'm hearing what everyone's saying, and it's just loud. It's where my inner energy is just going haywire. It's like, it's going crazy. It's
Sounds
my
like you're
thought.
describing overstimulation.
Yeah, yes, overstimulated, overcrowded, yes, whatever is too much. That's me. So the future me wants to be less stimulated, more grounded, listen to what's going on, but probably from a neutral third party perspective, than somebody that has to react to a situation. I just say, yep, that's just what happened.
My intuition is giving me the word stillness.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I applaud you for arriving at that. Uh, I'm assuming without something tragic driving you toward it, but I'll just share a little bit about my story. I had to deal with a rather tragic loss during COVID. Lost a partner of 20 years after a year of having to deal with critical care. And it woke me up because the person I was before was someone that was always seeking, always thriving on trying to take in as much as I could so that I could be the one to provide the answer. I could put out the fires, I could do everything. And I lost that ability. I lost any desire to have anything like that. And something that I seek in as great a quantity as I can find it is that stillness, that quiet. I need silence. I need for things to be I need the volume of the world to be turned down in many ways. I know that we're taught at an early age that we have five senses. Well, somehow I have an awareness of there being several more, and all of them are turned way too high sometimes. So there are days when I carve out a little white space for me and I just shut it all out so that I can allow everything that's internal to be turned up a little bit louder
Mhm.
and I can shut everything else out.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? How
Oh,
has it
please.
been since being able to do that?
Here's the thing. There's definitely a sense of losing something greater when you go through a profound loss and there's something scary about and that whole thing that you talked about with the identity. It's similar to the experience of the dancer that can't dance or has lost a limb. It is there were times when it was frightening because it was a crisis of identity. But by embracing what new abilities came from having that grounding from an inner peace, it made it so that even though I might not have been able to deliver an answer fastest, I could arrive at a truth that was more grounded and based in something that was more thoughtful and in some ways, by some measures, more useful and helpful. And that's something that I've learned to embrace.
Thank you for sharing that. Really, that's touching.
Mason, I am going to ask you a question now that I'm going to very, very intentionally word because this is not the way it would normally be worded. But I want to kind of steer away from achievements and success. So my question is, looking back from the beginning to now, to this very moment, what would you say is your most celebrated aspect of your creative journey?
The first thing that came up to my mind when you're asking that question was an aha moment I had with my life and health coach at the time that it's okay to be me.
So it's
And I'm not
okay.
sure.
What?
It's okay to be me. And I'm not sure why that came up, but I'm just putting it there. That after you asked that question, that was the first thing that came up. And I think that probably is probably the synopsis of this entire podcast episode is being okay to be me and how that showed up through going different routes, through trying different things, to going down the dance route, to exploring more about dance and exploring more about decorating and tapping into that, being okay with being me of being a dancer and being other things too. So, yeah, it's
Does
okay to be
that
me.
does that equate that okay to be me? Does that equate in some way to being more comfortable in your own skin?
Yes, I definitely think it is. Yeah.
So that leads to a little different. We're going to go off on a little segue. That part that you're celebrating, that it's okay to be me. How did community play a role in that? Or did it?
It did. Because I think when I was still trying to figure out what was me, also being okay with what is me, I seem to have landed. I didn't find them, and I don't think they found me. I think we just came together naturally where there was a support system happening. I have great friends. I still keep in contact with two of them from college, and we're pretty much known as the Sassy Bunch. That was a name somebody else gave us, not us. But to this day, we have really stayed close, and we would have conversations with each other constantly through text, through WhatsApp, through FaceTime. And so I think having a community even just allowed like one me to explore more what me is and to accepting those parts of me.
So these friends are people that you can go deep with.
Yes. And boy, have we gone deep, even to the point where we're just sobbing and we're just crying. Like there's like
Okay.
we're not talking anymore.
Mason, do you have any idea how rare that is and how valuable that is? I've searched most of my life for what you just described. Now, I do have it now. I do have
Oh,
a
good.
very small handful of male friends, because men, we're not straight, gay, doesn't matter what orientation you are. We're not good at deep with each other for the most part.
No,
I
Yeah.
no.
mean, I have a small handful of friends that I can go very deep with. Some of them are straight, some of them are gay, but they're men. And I feel so blessed for that because there have been long stretches in my life where I couldn't find any men that would dip below the surface. And I have very few gay friends for that very reason. I have a lot of gay acquaintances, but as far as gay friends go, those solid friends, couple.
There's a lot of discussion around how with men there always has to be the third thing. It's just really hard to have a serious conversation and to just be in each other's presence without there being a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's probably to add to that, there's also the stereotype that men, whether you're gay, straight, bisexual, or non-binary or not, men are usually rock solid. They don't show emotion, vulnerability is almost a sign of weakness. Even though I do see it changing and more men are being more open about their mental and emotional state, it's just been a long, like, it's been conditioned in our brains for so long that it's going to take a lot more time to cut those knots.
This is something I've studied because it fascinates me, and we're talking about the result of the patriarchy. This is what men
Yeah,
have done to men, and we have a four times greater suicide rate than women do for that very reason, because you can only keep that shit bottled up inside of you for so long, and then it comes out sideways, and that sideways sometimes just looks like ending our life because we can't handle anymore.
Uh, unf I
yeah,
hate to put this spoiler out there for anyone that hasn't figured it out or ruin what might be a classic, but what you're describing is the grotesque, real truth behind the Greta Gerwig Barbie movie. It wasn't just a cute story about toys coming to life. It was
Very
a
true.
conviction of the patriarchy.
Yes. And a very well done conviction. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I'm really glad, Mason, to hear that you are so fortunate to have that circle of influence and that circle of support. We're very big advocates for community. We think that we thrive when there's community and we survive when there's not community. And we're living in a world right now that's doing a lot of surviving because people are unplugged. They're just so caught up in their own little, you know, that those that hierarchy of needs, Maslow, man, I can't say
Yeah.
his name. Hierarchy of needs. When we're in survival mode, we can't think about anything else but just keeping our head above water.
Yeah, it makes people
yeah.
lose sight of the fact that if there's anything that's worth doing, it's much better when you have someone that you can do it with.
If you were going to share any words of wisdom that you like with our listeners, anything that has to do with, what we've talked about, their creative journey, their life, their way of navigating through that, finding that place of being comfortable in your own skin and being okay with me, what would your words of wisdom be? Anything you'd like to share? No wrong answers here.
Right. It's never a final destination. It's always a journey. We might arrive somewhere temporarily and it would be great. Change is consistent, so it might change in the future what satisfied you, who you were. Um, there might be other parts that come out. I was told by a friend that there are as many parts of you as there are stars in the sky. There's so many parts of you. You might not get to see them all. They might not be very present. They might be working with other parts of you. You just don't know it. Like we are all dynamic, masterful, creative beings with different shades of colors, varieties of textures and flavors. And that's how I view all of us as we're all masterpieces. And I hope that's something that people can, and those who are listening can take with them and remind themselves that we are amazing.
Go forth and be a masterpiece. I
There you
love
go.
it. I love it.
Well, I would be uh, um, remiss if I did not ask, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that we didn't have a chance to talk about in this time?
Oh, no, I think everything is good and said, really. I don't have anything else to share.
Well, this has been an amazing hour, and we're so glad that you could join us, Mason.
Happy to be here. This was great fun.
Yeah,
So much
Mason,
fun.
I really appreciate your realness. You know, that's something that's sometimes kind of hard to find in our community, but I appreciate your realness, and it's been a breath of fresh air.
Thank you for making a safe space where I could.